Today we will be finishing Unit 2, Evolution, Lesson 2, Explorations 2 and 3. Evolution by natural selection. Owls are birds of prey that hunt other animals for food. The great horned owl can be found in many habitats between the Arctic and South America. These owls are named for tufts of feathers on their head that look like horns. A wide wingspan, powerful talons, and keen eyesight make these owls powerful hunters. Evolution by natural selection over many millions of years resulted in these adaptations. In order for natural selection to occur, certain conditions must be present in a population. Great horned owls can catch large prey such as other birds. They also eat small rodents, frogs, and scorpions. And you can kind of see the little tufts that give them their name. Variation in traits. During sexual reproduction, alleles present in each parent separate into different eggs and sperm. Each chick receives a unique combination of alleles, resulting in genetic variation in the owl population. Random mutations can also add new alleles to the population. Adaptation is possible when genetic variation provides a variety of traits in the population. Some of these traits may increase a chick's chance of surviving and reproducing. There are genetic differences between young owls in the same clutch. So there are genetic differences in these owls, even though they're siblings, because they're like for feather color. One parent might have brown feathers, but they might have like the dominant trait and the recessive trait. And so some of their babies might end up with the dominant trait from that parent, but some of their babies might end up with the recessive trait from that parent. And so then it depends on what the other parent provides to the offspring, because if the other parent provides a recessive trait and they already have a recessive trait, their feathers aren't going to be brown. They're going to be whatever the recessive trait is. Whereas if they get the dominant trait from mom, their feathers are going to be brown regardless because they have the dominant trait. So question 11 says, brainstorm a list of traits for which there might be genetic variation in this clutch of owls. Well, some things would be like vision ability, wingspan, talon size, body size, beak size, hearing ability, feather color, length of feathers. That's all. Feet, what their feet are going to look like. So they're all different genetic. They'll all be different genetically slightly. Inheritance of variation. Great horned owl offspring inherit different traits from their parents. For example, some owl chicks may inherit traits that provide advantages in their environment, such as longer talons or sharper eyesight. Others may receive less beneficial traits, such as weaker wing muscles or low birth weight. Chicks that survive and reproduce will pass traits to their own offspring. So nearly 30 pounds of force is needed to open the talons of a great horned owl. Captured prey have little chance of escape. Question 12. Variation in great horned owl body size due to food supply can or cannot be affected by natural selection, and it cannot. If it has to do with the amount of resources that are available in the environment, genetics has no part of that. It has no food supply is dependent on the environment the owl lives in, not on the events that happen in the environment. It's not dependent on genetic variation. Variation in body size due to inherited traits can or cannot be acted on by natural selection. And this is true because natural selection deals with genetics. So like if it's food supply, that's not dealing with genetics. So natural selection has no part of that. But if it's dealing with variation in body size due to genes that you inherit from the parents, that can be affected by natural selection. So differential survival. A population's environment determines which trait allows for a better chance of survival and reproductive success. Over many generations, traits that help an organism survive in the environment tend to add up in a population. Owls with longer talons or sharper vision are best able to grab moles or lizards from field grasses and forest shrubs. These well-fed owls survive and pass on their genes to the next generation. As the natural selection process continues through each generation, more and more owls inherit helpful traits. Question 13. Most birds have feathers that make whooshing sounds when they fly. Owls have feathers that result in near silent flight, allowing them to sneak up on prey. Explain how natural selection led to this adaptation for owls. So I just showed a picture of an owl there. So things would be like variation in the feather type in the owl. So like Variation in feather type resulted in owls that had feathers. So like you had an owl that was born, that's feathers were quieter than the previous owls. And then that one survived better in its environment. So it had children more easily. And so it reproduced more and more quickly. And it passed that trait to its offspring. And those offspring survived better than the offspring that didn't have the silent feathers. And so then over time, more owls with the silent feathers were surviving than the owls that didn't have silent feathers. So then over several generations, you get more owls with silent feathers than those that don't. Turn the page. Question 14. When an environment changes extreme or rapid, populations may be less or more likely to adapt because of the process of natural selection. If there's really rapid changes, it's going to be less likely to adapt because you're not going to have enough time for natural selection to take place. So continuing that question, so like they are less likely to adapt because of the process of natural selection occurs over many generations. In these cases, populations may be less or more likely to become extinct, and it's more likely because they have less of a chance to adapt to the changes in their environment and to survive those changes. So engineer it at the bottom. Scientists can use their understanding about how the natural world works to engineer solutions to problems. For example, understanding the process of natural selection allows scientists and farmers to work together to produce healthy, plentiful crops for the rapidly growing human population. They can identify beneficial plant traits and control reproduction so that these traits are passed on to offspring. This is called artificial selection because people, not nature, are selecting desired traits. So question 15, one source of groundwater pollution is pesticide runoff from crop fields. How could the use of artificial selection be used to address this problem? A, farmers select plants that are most resistant to pests, which reduces the need for pesticides. B, farmers select plants that are less resistant to pests, which increases the need for pesticides. C, the environment selects plants that are most resistant to pests, which reduces the needs for pesticides. Or D, the environment selects plants that are least resistant to pests, which increases the need for pesticides. Well, the goal is to not have as much pesticide. So B and D could be crossed off. So then you're left between, is it the farmers who are selecting plants that are more resistant, or is the environment selecting plants that is more resistant? And artificial selection is when people select the traits, not nature. So the correct answer would be A. And then 16, how is artificial selection similar to natural selection? How is it different? Well, natural selection and artificial selection are both choosing traits that will better survive in those environmental conditions. So like you're picking the traits that are more desirable for whatever situation you're in. However, the frequency of the traits the frequency of the traits are going to be different because artificial selection is a little faster because it's human run versus natural selection. So like you're going to see changes happening faster in the following generations. It's not going to take as long. And then the major difference between them is natural selection is done by the environment. It's natural, whereas artificial selection is artificial. It's done by humans. So exploration 3, analyzing patterns of natural selection. Hammerhead sharks are predators that can often be found prowling reefs in shallow ocean waters. They eat a variety of prey, including fish, octopus, and crabs. Scientists have made hypotheses about the unusual head shape of these sharks. Research suggests that the wide-spaced eyes improve the shark's vision. Improved vision may help the sharks better track fast-moving prey. Researchers have also hypothesized that the head shape may help the shark dive and perform movements needed to catch its favorite meal, stingrays. The shark uses its wide, flat head to pin down the stingrays that are hiding under the sand on the ocean floor. So hammerhead sharks are named for their unusual head shape because it looks kind of like a hammer. Discuss. Question 17. Choose one of the hypotheses about the function of the shark's head. Describe how a scientist might design an experiment to test a hypothesis. So it's just like if you were trying to say that, the shark's head helps it pins prey on the or stingrays on the ocean floor, you would just observe sharks in their natural habitat, or you would raise sharks in like an enclosure, and then you would observe their patterns to see if if you put stingrays in the tank that are hiding under the ocean floor, you can see if like that head is helping them at all. You would just have to devise an experiment that would show the sharks using their head to pin the stingrays as a way to help them catch their food. That's what you need to do. Question 18. Researchers have discovered that the wide-set eyes result in a large blind spot directly in front of the shark's head. How is it possible that this head shape evolved, giving this disadvantage? And that's just simply because the benefits of having the eyes on the side of the head outweigh the fact that they have a blind spot in front of their head. So basically, it's more beneficial for the eyes to be here. It's better for them for the eyes to be here because how their prey moves and how they hunt. It's better for the eyes to be here than it is for their eyes to be kind of here so now it doesn't really bother them that there's a blind spot in front of them because it's not hurting their population numbers. It's not hurting them. Patterns of natural selection. Natural selection is a process that can be observed, measured, and tested. Data has been gathered from the field and the laboratory by thousands of scientists. These data document the evolution of populations in response to changes in their environment. For example, the increase in antibiotic-resistant bacteria, pesticide-resistant insects, and herbicide-resistant plants shows that these organisms are changing by the process of natural selection. Scientists have also measured changes in the timing of animal migrations and flowering of plants in responses to changes in climate. The patterns observed in these data can help scientists explain how populations may have changed in the past. They can also be used to predict how populations might change in the future. Turn the page. So then they're showing you a case study. The graph below shows a pattern of selection in male coho salmon. The red dotted line shows the normal distribution for the trait. Most males have a medium body size. The blue line shows the distribution after selection has occurred. So it goes from small to large. So male salmon, such as the coho salmon, defend territory. So question 19, large male salmon defend territory and keep other males away from females. Small males can often sneak into a territory unseen by the large male. How might this explain the pattern of the graph? So it's just showing you here. This is what would happen with natural selection. This is what actually normally happens. Most of them are in the medium range. And the answer to that would be like the graph shows that being large or small is an advantage for different reasons. Like if you're large, it's going to be better for you to be able to defend your territory because you're big. But if you're small, you're sneakier, so you can get into the territory easier. So there's benefits to being both, whereas like medium fish, you're just in the middle ground. So you're not small enough to be sneaky, but you're not really huge enough to defend against big fish. So it's better in this situation, and this is why natural selection has changed the size of the population, because it's better to be either small or large salmon versus being medium salmon in the environment that they're living in. So case study, coat color in polar bears. Genetic evidence reveals that polar bears are most closely related to a species of brown bear living on Alaska's ABC Islands. Brown bears show a range of coat colors from solid brown to brown with light spots. The graph shows the selection pattern for coat color that occurred in polar bears. So polar bears spend much of their time on sea ice hunting for seals. So here's the graph. So you have brown fur and white fur. So basically this is how they think polar bears came into be, is you had like a brown bear that over time changed into more white bears. So question 20, polar bears have coats that help them survive in the cold Arctic where they live. The color of the coat helps them to blend in with their environment. The specialized hair cells that make up the coat keep the bear warm and dry. It is likely that one or more than one environmental factor caused the evolution of one or more than one trait in the polar bear. Well, the answers are it's likely that one environmental factor, like the fact that they live in a snowy environment, the fact that they have snow, chances are it's one environmental factor that caused an evolution in more than one trait. So eventually over time now they have thicker coats that insulate them better. Their hair is also waterproof, and they are able to hide in their environment. So you have three different things that are a result of the fact that they live in the Arctic. So one environment, they live in a cold environment. So case study, spine number in cacti. Population of desert cacti shows variation in the numbers of spine or needles on the cactus surface. A new predator species migrates to the cactus habitat that prefers to eat cacti that have low spine numbers. Cactus individuals with high spine numbers are likely to have more parasites that lay their eggs at the base of their spines. So cactus spines are a limited defense against predators. Predator populations also evolve adaptive traits because of natural selection. So you can see the cactus with the little spikes are spines. So question 21, we're not drawing a distribution graph, so you can skip it. And then question 22 is just having you explain your pattern shown in your graph. We didn't draw the graph, but then it says explain the changes in the cacti environment, how changes in the cacti environment result in changes in the cactus population trait. So basically, it would just show you that pollinators are attracted to the odor, so like a stronger odor in your, or no, I'm getting to the evidence notebook, sorry. So cacti with mid-range numbers of spine are best able to defend against predators, but since they don't have a ton of spines, they're not going to have as many parasites. So having a middle number of spines on the cacti would be the most beneficial for the environment, because it's still going to protect the cactus from getting eaten by predators, but it's also going to protect them from not having parasites that live on the spines, because the more spines they have, the more likely they are to have parasites. We're skipping question 23, which is what I started reading. So turn the page. Then the last thing, analyzing natural selection in medium ground finches. In studies conducted on one of the Galapagos Islands, scientists observed the effect of natural events on the beak shape of the population of medium ground finches. They measured the size and shape of the beaks of thousands of finches on the island. Medium ground finches usually eat small, soft seeds that are plentiful on the island. During a drought in 1977, plants on the island did not produce many seeds. The soft seeds were quickly eaten up. Finches that could eat larger, harder seeds instead of small, soft seeds were able to survive. Finches that could not eat the larger seeds died of starvation. Researchers compared measurements of average beak size before and after the drought. So they want you to create a bar graph. We're not going to do that. But question 25 asks, use the graph and the text to describe how the drought resulted in that selection pattern shown in the ground finches. Well, basically, before the drought, they all had, relatively small beak sizes because they were they had smaller beak sizes, like length, depth, and width was all smaller for the beak because they were eating soft seeds. So they didn't need big, powerful beaks to be able to crack open large seeds that were tougher, or to break apart seeds that are tougher. So eating those soft seeds resulted in smaller beaks because they didn't need a big beak. But then after the drought happened, now they saw that the finches, and it wasn't a huge change, it was just a little one, but they saw that the beak length, depth, and width all increased by just a little bit because of the drought. So because birds were dying because they couldn't find soft seeds, and they were having to eat larger, tougher seeds to survive. That's what it's showing you. Your assignment will be on Google Classroom.